New year 2023, and we are coming to you live, and we'd like to welcome back Charles. Welcome back, Charles. So now we have the technology to once again go live. I would like to welcome council and call this meeting to order. In the agenda, I do have one item under 13.3, and it's called rail advocacy. Is there any other additions?
Madam Mayor, administration has no other additions to the agenda.
Anything from council? No. Could I have someone move the agenda, please? Councillor Jessamine, all in favor? Carried. I would like to welcome Staff Sergeant Bouguenot to the, I just learned how to say his last name and now he's going to leave us.
That's right. Next one's easier.
So welcome.
Thank you very much. Normally I would be in uniform, but I was just dealing with some matters and some other detachments, so I had to rush over here.
Yes, he is also the DANCO for our region, so he has many balls in the air.
Yes. To give you a couple of quick stats. For November, we had 432 calls for service. In December, we had 512. So we saw a pretty good increase there. The holiday season was especially busy. Some of the guys commented that it was the busiest days they had worked during their 2 years here. So it's what's to say how much things have increased during that time. Total calls for the year in 2022, 8,442, and that's the entire area. In the town, it was 6,199 calls for service. So that was the calendar year, so January to December. In comparison, in 2021, total amount of calls is 7,209. So we've seen quite a bit of an increase there. And then our mental health calls, under the Mental Health Act, 164 calls this last year, which was comparable to what we experienced in 2021, with 162 calls. And even going back 2020, 148. So we started to see an increase 2021, remaining the same, but it's a high number. I'll get into the crime reduction units. Quick report here. They had 20 files that they were the lead on. 7 charges resulted from it. 5 judicial authorizations were completed. Arrest warrants, there was 7 of them executed. And they have 2 ongoing active drug trafficking files. High-level crew conducted surveillance on a hotel room in High Level. As a result of this investigation, grounds were obtained for a Controlled Drug and Substances Act search warrant. 5 people were arrested as a result, and 1 male from High Level was charged with possession of a controlled substance for the purpose of trafficking. High Level crew located and arrested the male wanted on 14 criminal charges, including 3 counts of assault causing bodily harm and unprovoked attacks on residents of High Level. The accused has a lengthy history of fleeing from police, and when police had most recently attempted to arrest him on his outstanding warrants, the accused assaulted a member and fled. High Level crew was able to safely arrest the accused with no injuries. Crew unit also assists with attempting to locate a wanted male on one of the outlying communities, charged with forcible confinement and assault. The accused is associated to organized crime. Members were able to determine that the male was no longer in the High Level area. The crew members served an emergency protection order as residents. So emergency protection orders are typically in domestic violence situations. It's another process just to provide some protection to the victim. There's also a joint force operation investigation with the Canada Border Services Agency to target offenders involved in drug trafficking and High Level with the intention of having non-residents deported. And then December was Impaired Driving Enforcement Month, and as a result, High Level crew participated and issued 2 roadside sanctions. There's a forensic accountant met with one of the members from crew. Whereas a local business was defrauded of approximately $112,000 worth of products. The investigation is complex and ongoing. Anyone who's had any involvement with fraud files or any financial ones know that there's a lot of work involved with that and it takes up quite a bit of time. And just going through our violations, I think everyone has a copy. Or, yeah. So I'll just go through it, kind of lump them together here. But our traffic accidents at 15, provincial traffic offenses 19, impaireds 4, mental health act just for December was 21, and then our provincial statutes was 81 total. Other criminal code 58, offensive weapons 2, public mischief, so that's where someone has misled or led a police agency, so we're looking at 4 of those. What they call corruption, national survey codes, that's just some of our stats with victim services, prisoners, there's 110 of those files or stats. Drug trafficking 1, possession of a illicit drug 1, sexual assault 1, crimes against persons at 17, forcible confinement 2, assaults 32, theft under, theft under 3, theft of car 2, and then mischief, so damage to property or obstructing enjoyment of property 80, fraud 2, break-in enters 5, damage to property with arson reported 1, related police activities 39, and then we had assistant general public, which is just kind of a catch-all for something that's not in the criminal code or provincial statutes. There's 7 of those, 3 reported missing, people reported missing, and well-being checks we had 22. It was a busy month. I'll wrap up the calendar year. Our fiscal year goes from April to March. So those dates are a little different. I don't know if there's any questions on that. Or...
Any questions? No?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. One thing I will mention, it looks like our victim services unit is looking at holding a regimental ball on February 25th, I believe it is. More information will be coming out on that, but they just advised me of it today. So
Okay.
I'm just going to share that information. Have a great night. Thank you.
You
and
too.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So everybody has had a chance to look at the minutes. Could I have someone move them if there's no errors? And I'll have to learn your name. Councillor Lebron, all in favor? Carried. Could I have someone move delegation business from the RCMP? Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried. I do not have a report. I did nothing from the 12th.
Crazy, proper holiday.
So, I guess I don't need a mover. Going on to council committee reports, Deputy Mayor.
December 13th, I attended the Upper Hay Regional Forest Public Advisory Committee. On the 14th, I attended Ready, which I believe the mayor also attended. On the 15th, I also attended the dinner meeting with the Dene Council, that the mayor was also at. And on the 15th, I was a day ahead of time and did the Christmas light judging. Great job again by everyone in the community. It's unbelievable, some of the displays, and including ones that don't enter the contest but are looking good.
Yeah, it was very well lit up and nicely done this year.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for reminding me I was at those meetings.
You're welcome.
Councillor Anderson.
December 15th, I also attended the meeting with the Dene Talk. And also on December 15th at noon, I attended a community education committee meeting over at the college. And then on January 4th, Golden Range Society, their regular meeting, their AGM is now scheduled for February 22nd. And they have an open house on February the 11th. That's all I have.
Open house at the,
At the center.
okay. Any questions? Thank you. Counselor Jessamine?
I too attended the December 15th dinner meeting with the Dene Top. And just to add to the earlier announcement from regarding the Valentine's Ball, that this will be the first one in 3 years where the RCMP and Victim Services will be running that, so we'll be a fundraiser for Victim Services, so we're pretty excited about that. So that'll be on the 25th, and poster should be out here in the next day or two. So.
Valentine's Ball on the 25th.
Yeah, well, because of, Valentine's was the day it landed during the week.
Mm.
Yeah. And then teachers are away the week before, so.
Mm. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Any questions for Counselor Jessamine? No? Counselor LeBron?
I attended the meeting with the Tenaytah First Nation as well. It was great to meet them. Yeah, put some names and faces together. I didn't know any of them before. And then the light up contest on the 16th as well. And that was really good, really well put together by everyone.
Thank you. Counselor Welke?
I attended the dinner as well with council with the Dene Tah on the 15th of December, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Counselor Lambert?
On December 15th, I also attended the dinner meeting with Dene Tah. It's really nice to see some familiar faces and get to know ones we haven't met before. And then on December 16th, I also took part in the light up contest. As everyone else said, it was really nice to see the town lit up. And
The town lit.
Yeah, that's all I have to report.
Just to reiterate the meeting with the Dene Tah, it was very nice to finally sit down with them and be able to meet the new councillors. And just to let council know they are interested in reactivating SETI, so we will reach out to them and see what are good times for them. Could I have someone move council reports, please? Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. Action list. If there's no questions, can we please move it? Was it Deputy Mayor? All in favor? Carried. Upcoming events list. Any questions? Could I have someone please move it?
I'll move for information.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. The monthly report to council. I have some questions. So under the Green and Inclusive Community Funds, it says they've announced the next round. Have we applied?
We're just waiting for some information because it's a little different round of funding. We have our engineers that are putting together some of the energy packages, and the deadline is next month. I believe it's February 22nd, so we will be in time for that.
Okay. Just so council is aware, I don't know how many of you have listened to me or that I've had a chance to talk to or Clark has talked to, but the update on the water sewer for the Bushy River, after talking with Bernard and Jordan, they are not going to wait because they have been given 15 million, not 5, to complete the first phase of their project. And if they were to put it on hold, it would put the second 15 million in jeopardy. So I don't know what the town, I don't know what you had talked about.
Yeah, we're gonna bring some options back to council, with it for the committee of whole, so that, because we need to we need to do what we need to do now.
Okay.
Oh,
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
is not a significant part of their project though, actually running in all of the line services to all of the residents? Like, the cost of their plant may not be $30 million, like, it's gonna be a significant cost for them to actually hook everybody up. So whether they can proceed with that part.
My understanding, from their executive director, is that the first 15 million is to build the lagoon treatment facilities, the sauger bed, all of that type of stuff, and hook in the subdivision, so the one that's right adjacent to the town of High Level. The next 15 million is to extend that distribution and collection system to the rest of the, at least the bulk of the housing on Bushy Reserve. So that's the 15 million they don't want to jeopardize, because that's most of their collection system.
So it's not that they don't want to work with us, it's just that they're way ahead of us. And, you know, in talks with their engineers, they have been told that if they put this on hold, they go to the bottom of the list, and that jeopardizes everything. So, I mean, if the shoe were on the other foot, we would do the same. So
the reality of it is, we will be pursuing our own completely independent project.
well, whatever
Yeah,
administration
not
comes
necessarily
up.
completely independent, because they are working on other things where they're giving us some of their sewage, so we could look at different options, but we need to proceed with our own studies now, or our own planning. There might be some things we can tie together. We did talk to them a little bit about maybe there's some way they can use our retention pond, and anyway, there's a few options out there, but we're gonna need it engineered.
So the next thing is, they met with the utility commission and the town's legal counsel to discuss the need for a franchise agreement. I thought we had settled those.
Well, during the negotiations with the county, there was an assistance on the part of, I believe it boiled down to their legal counsel, but anyway, that this entire agreement had to go through the Alberta Utilities Commission as a franchise agreement. Gwendolyn Stewart Palmer and I met with the AUC on December the 7th, and we kind of were met with blank stares. They're not convinced that this is a franchise situation. So I've reached out to the new administration in the county, Gwendolyn's reached out to their legal counsel, and it appears at this time, I'm not going to make any promises, that we will probably be bringing back a Section 45 agreement, which is just basically an agreement for service between two municipalities. And that will save a lot of money and costs and red tape down the road.
All right, any questions down the line for administration? Yes.
So, with Health and Safety Council now has to participate in interviews to complete our core?
There is an inspections, there's going to be a change in the Occupational Health and Safety Act that essentially bumps the responsibility from the CAO up to the council, which is kind of a violation of the Municipal Government Act, but I don't think it's going to be onerous, but you will have to be more involved in some of the safety stuff.
Okay. And then the Prairie Can grant for Community Park, that grant's been extended to 2025?
2024.
I believe,
But
2 additional years is what they extended it, so.
Because it says
It says 25 in
It says
there.
2025, but it says also extended, so does that mean that the we got an extension on the,
Cultural Park, no,
Cultural
that's a
Park?
different
No.
grant. Okay. It's a Prairie Can grant, but it's a different grant program. So no, that one was not extended.
so can we not make the argument if one program within Prairie Can is extending that it can?
We can push that back.
One was a tourism relief grant. The community park was not a tourism relief grant, and I think that's the confusion in it all.
And the one grant is through the High Level Native Friendship Center, so
Yeah, it's
if
not our-
they're the primary grant holder, so we were just aiding, Ruth was aiding them in their grant application, so.
They have enough components under the current grant that they proceeded with a lot of stuff that's already on order, so they fulfill the requirements of that grant. What it's going to leave is a lot of the concrete and the walkways and stuff like that that couldn't be poured in November, but they've ordered the basalt memorials and that type of stuff, so I think they're not going to lose any money on it anyway.
Who?
Friendship Center on the Prairie Can grant.
Yeah, we are. Like, we're not, like, those projects are over, like, the costs of them was more than what we got in
They're
the,
not gonna have to give any of the grant back.
oh, no,
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant.
oh. Yeah, yeah, I don't know what the difference between the one grant and the tourism relief fund is, but
They did the same thing with both grants. They basically asked questions till they were delayed till winter, so.
That was all I had.
is there, anybody else that has questions on administrative reports? Good news on the disaster recovery fund?
Oh,
Yes,
partially good news.
Well,
great.
come on,
Partially great.
a lot of hard work by administration, so
Yeah.
is there,
Madam Mayor, and just from our conversation this morning, if I may, it does say under Arena and Parks that the kitchen lease was terminated. That was at the request of the leaseor, or leasing, not us. They were doing a very good job, everything was going well, but they're encountering staffing issues.
red flags go up when I read terminated,
Yeah.
and I thought we terminated Oriole Housing.
So there's no concession there now?
No, so we're looking at alternatives to make sure we cover large events, so we're working on some options right now. No, I think they were counting on the lodge starting with Mackenzie House, and that will give them that critical mass of staff, and that's going to be a few months yet.
The good news is we did get the money and we've hired a contractor. And they're gonna make their own doors, so.
I asked about that.
Yeah, they're just gonna make them out of a hunk of wood. That's what they do, that's what they are doing in, Spirit River. They have the same contract there, so when AHS has okayed it, so. That doesn't mean AHS is gonna give us a contract, a full contract. Anyways, could we have a motion to accept, reports if, there's no other questions?
I'll make a motion.
Councillor Lambert, all in favor? Carried. All right, into 12-1, I stole your thunder, sorry.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Director Phillips will address the next.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So
Happy New
great.
Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Great news before Christmas. We got a call from Brenda Fiordi. She is the director of the Community Services Branch with AEMA. And out of the $735,000 ask for the opportunity and carrying costs for the town of High Level, they approved $535,000. And that consisted of the actual carrying costs of our total claim of $10.2 million and all of the expenses that we paid out and any of the advances that they've taken off of there. So from 2019 to 2022, we gave them a breakdown of our carrying costs and our expenses that we carried over every year. And that was based on an interest rate from CIBC from 2019 that was used in our opportunity cost from CIBC, and that was what they approved, but they declined the $199,000, which was originally just an analysis that we asked CIBC to do up, basing what investments we withdrew from our reserves into carrying costs for the province, and between the two, out of the 735, they did, it makes sense what they reimbursed because it's very black and white. This is what we spent, this is what we carried, and they have a record of our expenses and revenues for that, but not so much the go ahead with the carrying costs from the bank analysis, so. And also the $103,000 for the ineligible costs is what they called it, even though it was costs that we have paid out, expenses we paid out to mutual aid municipalities. So they agreed on reimbursing that, a total of $638,000. So that was a nice little Christmas call.
So if we had not taken over paying for these services that we received, would have the province paid these?
Yeah.
Would have they paid them, like I'm reading right here that there were incorrect rate
Yeah.
charged. Would have they caught that before they paid that?
They would have. They would have. How it would have worked is exactly what we would have done. Each municipality would have submitted their invoices or their claims with all of their backup, and the province would have had to go through it, review it in that 3-step review process that they did, and do the same thing with each individual municipality. So the conversations with AEMA was exactly that, is we carried these costs, we didn't have the, I guess, administration didn't have the knowledge or even the direction for the OFC guidelines that these were ineligible because we couldn't make those calls to municipalities. We had to pay the expenses in order to claim the cost back from the province.
So, shouldn't these people pay us back?
Well,
Like I'm looking at these hours not verifiable, what does that mean? Does that mean that they put in claims that they didn't work?
well, yeah, so
Well, that's like,
it's
robbery.
hours, yeah, so hours not verifiable would have been, yes. So how the review process went is there was a resource ticket from, at the time, OFC would have had to approve a resource ticket stating what the resources were, what the labor, employees were, workers were, and the equipment was. And that resource ticket would have had to been referencing, say, clear water for 5 firefighters and tender and this many hours. And if all of that backup wasn't attached, they would break it out and say, okay, your resource ticket only says 3, you're only getting paid out for 3 at this rate. So a lot of the backup that we had for the invoices that we already paid out because they were sitting on our books for a while, only now it was going through the review process with the province, where we didn't have that review process going into it, yeah. And really this was our biggest argument, is this was not our role. This was not our role to use these guidelines, and all we knew is to pay the expenses in order to claim back the costs from the province.
So Madam Mayor, they have paid us all those costs, so it'll be up to them if they decide to go after those
Yeah.
municipalities.
So that 103 for those ineligible costs, that was part of the reimbursement that we did receive in December. So it was the 103,000 plus the additional 535,000. But it was very minimal. That's what it came down to, is things like food without receipts. And a lot of our hotels there was no workers there to provide receipts or anything like that, so.
I can understand receipts, but when you're billing incorrect rates and billing for hours that you didn't work are not very nice.
Yeah.
Was our total for the ineligible costs or potentially ineligible costs not 112,802?
It was.
So what happened to the other 9,000 they wouldn't approve?
So the other 100, they did add in some of those original ineligible costs. So we did a review with them to do the final project. Some of the labor, the project 1.7, it was our town of high-level volunteer firefighters and equipment response. Some of those costs, there was some duplication. So we did go through, and this was what we got the balance down to, was 103, that we agreed upon, that this was ineligible, that we didn't think it was fair that we would have to swallow 103,000 when majority of this is mutual aid from other municipalities.
And so administration's confident that if we went to the minister and tried to argue over the other 199,907, that we would not likely be successful?
Because they're opportunity costs and not direct interest costs, I think that's where, I mean, it's possible, but I'm going to guess that this was signed by the minister.
Yeah.
I think we take our licks and say thank you.
Well, they've already given us the money.
Well, I appreciate the fact that they finally did give us the money, but I'm very disappointed in these municipalities, I guess, that they would do something like that.
I would hate to see Terry's list of ineligible.
I was just gonna say, it's not intentional a lot of the times. There's these chaotic times and the sheer amount, the sheer chaos, so it would, not be too hard on the municipalities. We deal with this all the time, and they're honest mistakes a lot of times.
That's why you have no money in forestry.
Some of this was very poor record keeping. Was part of the issue.
I mean, our administration did everything they could. We didn't know that we were under or over, like, they were thrown into this without.
And the town has been paid back every penny it's spent.
It represents less than 1% of the total cost of the town. This showed these errors, so.
I'll move the recommended alternative.
I'm glad you're taking a lick.
Before I heard all of this, I was in favor of number 2, where we also go after them for the 199.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion, all in favor?
Yep.
Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work. What are you doing up there? Growing the north?
Getting ready for the next one. So I'll take notes.
Okay, so Growing the North Conference, I'm going to go because there's a nail. I'm not going to Mexico now, I know you're all sad, I'm going the end of March. But, I'm going to go because there's a nail meeting that same time. Plus, there is also a good chance that Minister Jean will be there. So if any of council would like to go, you put your name forward to Miss Beaton, and anybody want to go?
I'd love to go on the court all that week, so
Are you gonna come for nail?
I'm hoping to be able to Zoom it today.
Yes.
I should be able to make it.
Oh, I'll show you the ropes.
I'll just have to check my availability for those dates.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I can go.
you're gonna go as well? What about you?
I'd love to, but
No go?
no go yet, no, almost, fingers crossed.
What about you? There's no fires or. All right. 3, Councillor Lambert, Councillor Anderson and Counselor Lebron. Me, yes,
Okay, that's 4.
yes, 4,
Okay, thank you.
but I'm already registered, so.
It's midweek,
Could we have a motion sending myself and 3 counselors?
I'll make that motion.
Counselor Welke, all in favor? Carried. I'm staying at Pomeroy, by the way,
That's fine, I'll stay there too.
on the women's floor.
That's good.
I didn't know you guys were coming otherwise.
There's a women's school?
The one attached to the mall?
Yeah.
Oh, you're staying there, oh, I don't know if I want to stay in that place.
I rescind the
Put them at the Igloo Inn.
I didn't know that was a thing, but
I got family there, I'll just stay there.
There's lots of hotels with women's floors now.
We're not going there.
Yes.
Notion
Yeah, well, there's lots of vulnerable women like me traveling alone. All right, on to the next, which is the Northern and Regional Economic Development Grant application.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this grant program was forwarded to us on December the 19th by the province of Alberta with the January 22nd deadline. There's a number of criteria. A lot of it is aimed at increasing supports or the critical mass of retail, commercial, business attraction, and industrial attraction to communities in the north. The program is heavily weighted to Northern Alberta, although any community in the province can apply. The one thing Council's bringing forward, I guess the 2 things is, one is the business attraction track, what Council would like to pursue. And secondly is that this takes a 2-year commitment. It's a 2-year program. So what Council is proposing is to take the money we have budgeted this year in economic development, which is $114,000. That includes the 0.3 economic development position, the travel we already have booked for trade shows, some of our promotional items, some of the other promotional work that we've been doing. And then have that matched with the province over 2 years. That would allow essentially a 0.6 position. Again, promotional items, the travel to trade shows. And what we're looking at doing is the first year would be more an information gathering process and build on some of the reports that we already have, the availability, the inventories, the space availabilities in town. And then also look at conducting a gap analysis, survey our neighbors, the Denetaw, Hannibal Rural, some of the communities that use us and the Northwest Territories on what they're looking for services as they pass through town. The second year would then be more targeted presentations and trade show attendances. What I'm looking at there would be national trade shows, franchise trade shows, business-related trade shows, where you can actually go out and meet some of these service business.
National trade shows?
There's a couple of trade shows where essentially it's just those who have franchises. And make them aware of our community, have them come take a look and give them a lot of people look at this as a town of 4,000. It's not a town of 4,000 from a business point of view, it's a town of 30,000. That's our attraction area, and that's big enough for most franchises. It's a little small for some, but for a lot of them it's quite large. And if you remember the stories we've had over the years with some of the franchises opening up and not having enough food because the franchisors would not believe the trading area that we have. So getting that information out, there's a couple of really good studies raised and some good background work that we can build on and go from there. So that's our suggestion, is that we aim at this initial grant for business attraction. And that ask council to give the 2-year commitment to the $114,000.
Council? Yes.
So 0.66 FTE is basically that equates to the money, but it would be fulfilled by a variety of individuals and.
Yeah, we're not looking at hiring a .6. I mean, that may be where the way we go if you find the right person, but we're probably looking at a portion of Director Gavin's time. That would be thrown into that mix. The position that you did have, what we're looking at this year is probably more research than actually boots on the ground stuff. So one of the students we have might be able to fulfill that. And when we get into promotional materials, then we can also use that for consultants, for graphic design, publication, that type of thing.
So, who are the students that would do this?
Well, we would look for students. We have a couple that are filling other student positions right now that we might be able to utilize for some of the initial stuff.
Because doesn't Director Gavin have a lot on her plate right now?
She's gonna get rid of annexation here soon.
She's only got herself though, doesn't she?
Well, we are in the process of advertising for that planning and development officer position.
I think this is a great idea. I was really impressed when I read this, that we sourced out this opportunity and it just fits right in with our plan.
I hear a lot of heads nodding.
I fully support it as well. It's a great opportunity to get some of the information at a meeting and take us to another level.
I support it as long as she has room on that tiny plate she has.
Yeah, that is something I do pay attention to on a regular basis. You can only squeeze so many hours as a day for it.
Yeah.
But,
Go ahead.
I was just saying, but regardless, that amount of money is nice to acquire, and then we can spend it within that framework, however we like, whether it's consultants, students, Haley.
Yeah.
I think it's great, and considering the deadline, it's a fantastic project that you guys put together in a short period of time, so I think it's good.
Motion, Councillor LeBron.
I'm totally on board with the 114. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. You guys will remind me about this next year. All in favor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Carried.
Director Schmidt will take the next item, Madam Mayor.
Well, they didn't put up their hands fast enough. They shook their heads and I heard their nods. All right, the RFD for the amendment to the policy.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. The current policy that we're bringing forth to Council was written in 2006 with the change or direction we received from Council during the passing of the 2023 budget, moving our volunteer fire service personnel to paid on call. There is a need to, as a first step, to actually change our fire department policy. So we've done a draft of the policy change. The changes are directly outlined in the RFD. Basically changing some definitions from volunteer fire service basically to fire service, and taking out references to volunteer, as they will now be essentially casual employees. While we were in the policy, we did some updates to some of the terminology changes and updates to some of the service levels that we're actually currently already providing with the fire department to make it more reflective. So the wildland urban land fires has changed the wildland urban interface to reflect the right terminology. Medical co-response, originally it was just labeled as first response services. Medical co-response / first response is what the current MFR program really is. We made an addition with the passing in June of the purchase of Rescue 2 to provide emergency medical transport under medical direction. So that gives us very clear direction that will only be on the advice of our medical director, Dr. Forder. And The addition of water and ice rescue, we're already doing that. That was previously just captured under other technical rescues. We thought we would rather just lay that out directly so it's in there. And then the addition of technician level response for instance based on available equipment and training. So that's primarily directed for us at petroleum-based incidents. So tanker trucks tipped over on the side of the highway. We have the equipment and the training to do offloads and assist with actual working in the product, which would be a technician level response. All other dangerous goods types incidents or hazmat incidents where, if we had I'm trying to think of an incident, but biological incident or something like that, some other chemical incident that we wouldn't be available or equipped to respond to would be down to what we call an operations level, so it's more of a defensive response. So that's something we've been doing since well before 2006, so I'm not sure why it wasn't in the existing policy. And finally, a change from disaster response to emergency management to reflect current terminology. In the operational structure section, we changed Protective Services Department to Emergency Services Department to reflect an upcoming change in the department title. Again, we added some sections in number 3, in operational structure to reflect how we actually do the paid on call system. So we changed volunteer to paid on call firefighters, still recognized as town employees, and added a clause on paid on call firefighters. We paid an hourly rate for attendance at training and call outs based on a wage grid approved by council, which was approved in the 2023 budget. And then finally, the last item in the policy was the honorarium. So council also passed in the 2023 budget a smaller honorarium. Previously in the old policy that hasn't really been updated, it was a set amount based on the number of so much per member of the approved roster. That was changed several years ago to just set amount by council, and that number has been static in that budget for probably well over 10 years. And it still wasn't reflected in the policy because council just changed it in that budget. So we just simply changed it to an honorarium as determined by council. So that allows you the flexibility as council just to change it in the budget at whim. So instead of having a set amount in the policy. So that basically outlines the changes that we're proposing in policy 21306. And I'm open to any questions from council.
I have a ton of questions.
Sure.
And frankly, I would like to see this go to a committee because I have questions about volunteers, changing it from a volunteer fire department. I was under the impression that these volunteers were already employees of the municipality. That's what I've been told. So,
Madam Mayor, sorry, for legal purposes, because of WCB and OHS, they are considered employees of the town when they are working for the town, or when they are on fire department business.
but it says we're taking out volunteer because they will now be considered. I also have, and that's not my number one question. When we pass this on call, I guess this is why I need to see a visual. I did not realize at that point what we were doing to the fire department, because on call to me means that these guys are gonna be given set shifts.
No.
Well, how are we gonna do it without any volunteers then?
So we still have volunteer firefighters, they're just paid. So this is a terminology issue. So they're still volunteering to be on the fire service. The paid on call is a term that's very widely used in the fire service, which means they're paid for their services. So instead of volunteering and coming for free, they're paid an hourly rate when they come. We're not mandating when they're on call. We're not mandating when they're available on a shift. We're not providing shifts. They still come as they're available when the tones go off as a normal case. The difference is that we're paying them an hourly rate when they arrive. And the same would go for training, so instead of them volunteering their time for training, we're paying them an hourly
So they're
rate.
still volunteers.
Absolutely, they're still, so they're volunteer in terms of their volunteering, when they have a choice of when they come, but they're not volunteer because we're paying them. So a volunteer has a connotation in the policy that we're not paying them. So to change them, they're effectively casual employees the minute we start paying them. They'll have employment agreements, but they will be a casual employee, they just won't be regularly scheduled. So that's why the terminology changed. Nothing changes in the fire department from the aspect of they show up when they can. They still have the same commitment levels of training attendance. They still have the same commitment levels of calling attendance. So nothing changes on that. This is strictly a terminology issue with regards to what it looks like in the policy to meet 1, employment standards, 2, OH&S, and 3, legalities of signing employment agreements. Because we have to have an employment agreement to pay them.
Exactly.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, maybe,
I would like to see this table, because I have a bunch of questions that I would like to discuss.
so I was just gonna explain that it should be, really what it is paid while on a call. And it's just shortly paid on call. Because paid on call for operations department is very different than what we're talking about with the fire.
But paychecks automatically, when you go from stipends or whatever to paychecks, you're automatically an employee. So do they get the same benefits, the same everything that the rest of our, same rights as the rest of our town employees
They
get?
would be treated no different than any other casual employee,
So every one of them will now have a paycheck?
if they work. If
If they attend practices and attend calls, yes.
So, sorry, so paid on call doesn't mean you're paid while you're waiting for a call?
No.
Okay, so I think that's very confusing. I would like to see a closer look at the financial impact because, yeah, we approved, I'd like to even re-review what we approved for the budget because, I mean, yes, there would be a cap depending on what council approved, but what happens when the needs of the fire department and all these calls and the expenses far outweigh what we've approved, then does council get pressured to just keep increasing that budget, or like, what is it actually gonna cost? Do the volunteers start working, do every single one of them start responding to calls, and then we're obligated to pay them all?
No, there would be processes in place to deal with that, because the last thing we need is somebody showing up 15 minutes after the call tone goes off, and going, oh, I showed up, guess you don't need me. I'll charge for my.
But there's a
These are
lot of
things
different
that we
scenarios
need
that can
to
happen.
talk about.
That can,
Madam Mayor, if I may, a lot of this is administrative stuff that we're still working through with labor relations and a lot of that stuff. The detailed financials were provided during the interim budget process. We can bring them back if council like to look at them again.
I don't think we had like a long enough discussion at budget. I would like to go through all the, like, do they get paid while they're on call? So how many people do you need to be on call so they show up?
they don't get it, apparently.
They're not,
Because there's a difference between on call and paid when you show up there. Like, what if you don't have enough volunteers to even do paid on call?
I'm not following you, but
Okay, well, let me explain it in simpler terms. On call to me means that you're paid, like Keith's department, they're paid to sit there and be ready if there's a fire. $4 an hour, whatever you pay them. Same with nurses, right? If you're on call, you're paid to sit there and wait. But if you get called out, then it goes up automatically.
that's not what we have proposed, and that's not what we outlined in the budget.
Okay, so,
It's simply an hourly rate when they attend calls or when they attend training.
So I would like to see this reworded so that that is actually how it comes out and not as a paid on call, because
So we're
5
using the
years from
same.
now, 5 years from now,
Yeah, fair
somebody
enough.
looks at it and says, oh, wait, paid on call.
Yeah, so we will have another document outlining how we pay them, but this, I understand the confusion around the paid on call. This is the same terminology that every municipality uses around how we classify our fire services. So they're either volunteer, paid on call, or full-time. That's the differences in how we classify the fire service. Well, there's another one which is composite, which is a mixture of the two.
What we can do for the policy, sorry, Madam Mayor, is we can definitely put a definition in there.
So we can definitely put a definition into that to explain it.
Yes,
So in terms of the budgetary numbers, yeah, I think we had all the information available to us. One of the things that we also agreed to do was to start charging for fire. So if, there's a fire in the community, that's getting billed back, it's ultimately going to, insurance. I agree though, and that was gonna be, my request as well, that this go to a committee of the whole. This is something that's 17 years out of date, and rather than just changing the odd word here and there, I think that we can, probably look at some other municipalities that have done a more recent version of this, that, there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. Someone's probably dealt with some of the questions that council has. I think that I would like to see some input from the members as to how this all works and make sure that we're all sort of on the same page. But I just think that, because to me, the one that used to be called number 12, for example, is we've removed volunteer everywhere else, and it's not numbered anymore, but the town will provide the high-level volunteer fire department association a yearly grant based on what you said in available budget determined by council. So to me, are we doing the paid on call, or are we, and maybe we ask the association to change their name so that down the road, as Councillor Anderson said, when someone's looking at this in 5 years, that there's not confusion going, what the heck did the council do back in 2023? I just think the whole thing could probably be updated, be more concise, and make sure that everyone has a clear understanding when they read this.
did you have your hand up? Or did someone down there?
I'd be
Oh, you
willing,
had your pen?
sort of, yeah, I would be willing to make a motion to table this to the next committee of the whole, so we could discuss this. I think it's worthy of, a little extra discussion before we make this final decision on how this wording happens.
Madam Mayor, maybe committee of the whole in February, committee of the whole is next week, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if they would have enough time to go out and find out what other municipalities have.
I don't think that's probably an issue. You know what, if we'll do it, we can. If we can have it done by Friday, we'll bring it on Monday. If not, then we'll leave it till February.
yes.
So just a question for Rodney regarding, I understand there will be some more meat on the bone going forward regarding what's acceptable for when they respond and if they're late.
Correct, yeah.
Would we be able to see some of that, like Councillor Boyd mentioned about looking at other municipalities where they have that capture? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, so we have some models that we've been using, like obviously we've researched other departments. We have a research document that we had from what other departments in the Peace Region are doing. We landed on, when we brought this to council, we landed on a model very similar to the town of Peace River. It's a like department, like size community, like size call volume. So we have some documents from them. They explain how they pay their firefighters and how they do it. They don't have a policy like we have because their level of service is written into their bylaw, which I feel is a lot more complex, because if council wants to change a level of service, changing a policy is easier than changing a bylaw. So it's a little bit different. But in terms of the payment piece, yeah, that's easy enough to bring to council. We did lay out in this policy, but we can discuss it at the next committee of the whole, but it does say here how we pay them, hourly rate for attending calls and training. That's what it says in this policy. So we try to make it as clear as we can. But I understand the terminology about the paid on call thing. It's confusing. We talked about it today in the evening meeting, that it's a confusing term. It's unfortunately the terminology that's used. And I'm trying to keep it in like terminology for any other fire service. If everybody else is call it paid on-call fire service, and I come up with some other term, so that's why we try to keep it the same.
Yeah, like we're talking 500 and how many calls? And if we're paying how many fire people to go out per call, how long is that 500,000 gonna last? Like, I wanna know that.
Yeah, well, the budget we provided to council was based on, we have currently in our emergency reporting system, the same thing that spit out the stat report for you. All our volunteer wages, we already assign them at $25 an hour equivalent pay. It's called a volunteer equivalent, and it's based on $25 an hour. We have that in there because that's our current pay rate for when we have deployments or we have a long call like at Nordward or something like that. And we spit out stats for the last 3 years, and last year we would have spent $86,000. The year before we spent $130,000, and in 2019 we didn't run the stats because of Chuck Egg. It was completely skewed. We took an average of that, realized that not all the calls are attended to by volunteer staff. Most of the daytime calls are responded to by the full-time staff, and you're not paying any extra for that. So, and we would manage, we have plans already in place, which we can discuss with council at the next meeting on how we manage, this isn't a free-for-all that 20 people show up for one call and everybody gets paid an hour and we only send 3. We'll be managing that on both sides of the house, the volunteer or the paid on call staff versus the full-time staff.
Okay.
We're not just throwing darts at a dartboard.
I don't think you are, but I want to make it straight in my mind so I can explain it. Yes.
When we're getting some comparative data from other municipalities or other fire departments, could we also maybe get some examples of fire departments that are still successfully run with predominantly actual volunteer basis?
As I mentioned in the budget planning session, we're the only fire department besides the town of Rainbow Lake that is not paid on call in Northern Alberta.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay, paid on call, but how many of them have paid staff, paid firefighters?
Most of them pay an hourly rate.
No, I mean have paid fire chief, deputy fire chief, a WUI team.
Well, WUI team, there's only one other in the province, but paid fire chief and paid staff. There's quite a few that are composite now, that have a composite model, more and more.
And what about I'll ask you at the meeting. Okay, there's a motion on the table, all in favor? Carried. I haven't actually been really silent. I've been at 3 meetings that I forgot to mention, but I was also at a rail advocacy meeting on December 13th, in which there's 29 communities now involved. And I was asked to sit on the executive, so I'm asking for a resolution from council to okay that.
So Madam Mayor, we did look, it's the Community Rail Advocacy Alliance.
Oh, that, yes, sir.
We did have a letter from them and we did donate money towards this advocacy.
We did 2,000.
Okay. Nobody wants to make a motion.
How often do they meet?
I don't know, we've only had 1 meeting tomorrow morning we meet again, or we will if you okay it. What?
I'll make a motion. Approve your executive list.
And I think most of them will be on Zoom. But it is going to take a lot of meetings because they want to have this done within, I've already had a meeting with Tolko and a meeting with West Fraser. And I want to set up a meeting. I was gonna ask you for, the name of the gentleman at Richardson. And, yeah, so just to hear their concerns about why, why they're not getting rail cars. It seems to be the biggest concern right now is, West Fraser, because they have the cross-beam rail cars. So, farmers are happy, they're getting lots of cars this year.
Yeah, this year it's railroading over there, it's done every week.
Because they have a good system, that's why.
Well, it's because there's no oil and gas being hauled. All right, so who's made that motion?
I did.
Okay, Counselor Jessamine, all in favor? Carried. Under correspondence for information, is there anything that anybody wants to talk about?
Madam Mayor, if I may just make a note, item 15.8, Tolko's donation to the Community Services Department. We are arranging a walk this week. Council knows the place and the time if any of you would like to attend.
That was a great donation.
Yeah, it was just out of blue, that was great. Most of that's going to go towards sponsoring family.
Yes.
Is that, the Toko sponsors, is that part of this? I've seen where they have the rink, it's been open the last few Sundays and then the pool is.
No, that was our plan through Christmas.
Okay.
So they'll actually be sponsoring family swims and family skates going forward.
Okay.
So when do they do the family swims and skates? Oh,
It's in the, there's an online, calendar, at the town website that shows.
oh, is there? I looked for one and I couldn't.
There's one Sunday.
That website is so hard to
We're
find
working
stuff.
on it, and you're absolutely right, things get buried in there and it's horrible.
I looked all, well, I didn't look that hard, but.
I can't go on it.
So, nobody wants to discuss correspondence, could I have a motion for that, please? Counselor Lambert, all in favor? Carried.
We're done.
No one can?
No?
So that ends our meeting, our first meeting of the year went swiftly, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us, and have a great week.